This is DeliveranceMinistry.fm VideoCast number 70. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of DeliveranceMinistry.fm, where we give you proven insights about the demonic realm and deliverance ministry so that you can be much more effective in waging spiritual warfare. Don Ibbotson here again with my co-host and colleague, Dr. Phyllis Tarbox. Phyllis, welcome again.
Thanks, Don. Always a pleasure.
It is. We enjoy doing these. We appreciate the comments, the suggestions. We'd like to get some more of those. Sometimes coming up with relevant topics is something that we'd like help on. If there's some out there that
we need you.
So we're not just, we want to do things that are relevant for you. So if you got topics, we've had some number of them that we've done, because of input from our listeners. So please get with us, email us. Let us know what you think would be some good topics for us to do. We do these on a regular basis and on different topics, as I say. And today we're going to be basically talking about a spirit of double-mindedness. We're going to be, exploring that. We're going to focus a little bit on the spirit side of it, but also at the end we'll talk about how to walk out and hopefully win some mind battles. But the remedy is always for any kind of spirit is deliverance ministry. First of all, getting delivered from that spirit. But I guess the most obvious question, Phyllis, and I'll begin by asking you this: why are we focusing on double-mindedness? What are we seeing in people that makes us think this is something we need to address?
Well, you know what, Don? I think the double-minded spirit really keeps them from walking in the purpose that God has for them. It keeps them questioning things. It keeps them, what's the scripture? A double-minded man, he wanders. Basically, he's unstable in all of his ways, right? I can't grab the scripture right off the top of my head. But we know it keeps a person confused and not knowing the direction that God has for them. And I think that's the biggest thing right now. I think all of us need to be in our places. You remember that old school thing? We have to be in our places with sunshiny faces, Right. Well, there's a real processional in the spirit realm that's being put together right now by God. I mean, he's putting us where we need to be aligned for this end time harvest. And so if you're out there wandering and you're lost and you don't know really where you belong and you're kind of double-minded in all your ways, then you're not going to be where God needs you to be when the harvest comes, and there's going to be torment where you're at.
Well, I want to read that scripture that you referenced, because there's a lot of meat in there. It actually starts off in James chapter 1, verse 5. It says, "If any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him. But," and there's a but there, "when he asks, he must believe and not doubt." That's a big thing. When you ask for wisdom, must believe and not doubt, because he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That man should not think he will receive anything from the Lord, for he is a double-minded man, unstable in all that he does. And so in a nutshell, it's like you say, that's why we see so many people floundering, I think. Yeah. They're not walking in the fullness. They're blown. That's such a great picture of a wave, or even something on the wave, tossed to and fro. There's not making any real progress.
Right. Just
kind of going back and forth. And I think there's a lot of people stuck in that. They're stuck in that realm. They're not moving forward. Will believe one thing one day, next, and I'm not sure. And they have trouble. We'll get into making decisions, but it's like, what do you believe, and why do you believe it? And so that's that. That's that double-mindedness. And so there's can be, I believe, a demonic spirit behind us. Those of you who are familiar with how we do things here at Above and Beyond, it's one of the spirits that we call out. It's really under that spirit of a strong man of
deaf and dumb.
Deaf and dumb, yes. It's one of the spirits under mental illness and things under that. But we'll get to more of that in a moment. But that's the reason why we see a lot of people, I believe, who are just caught up in that, and they have that devil having that demonic spirit working in their life. So it is a spirit. There is a spirit behind double-mindedness. So maybe we should start off with the open doors, or how or why get into this, or I know you've got something you want to read. Maybe that's a good place to read.
Yeah, I've got something from Frank and Ida Mae Hammond. Many of you are familiar with Pigs in the Parlor, the Practical Guide to Deliverance that they wrote. It's really a good book on deliverance. But they talk about indecision. And they said that these are mental spirits, which is what you just said. They fall under the strong man of deaf and dumb. And they're quite common. That's sad. It says a person should normally be able to weigh the factors involved and reach a decision. But these spirits can torment a person over making the smallest decision. Every decision looms as a major crisis, and when he can't decide, he postpones. Indecision has led to procrastination. The longer he weighs a matter, the more confused he becomes, and in desperation or frustration, he compromises his decision and settles for less than the best. Or he may just try to escape his decision-making process and just forget about it. But in some cases, procrastination actually precedes indecision, which I think procrastination is fear of the future. And is
fear of making a wrong decision.
Fear of making the wrong decision.
Tied in with that, right?
Right.
Tied in with that. It's all fear-based.
Fear of failure.
For us, we put procrastination under the fear straw man. Right.
And so it says that it precedes indecision, and it's a leading spirit. So the clue to procrastination spirit in a child is when a child is heard to say often, in a minute, or, just wait. And so you'll see this pattern will be repeated as they get older because, that spirit of indecisiveness, or as we're calling it, double-mindedness, which is what it is, will come in and it'll really take root in a person. So.
Okay. Good. So that's kind of the framework. And like I say, for me, kind of a visual person, I like the picture of a wave tossed to and fro on a sea. It's kind of like no real direction, and believing one thing one day and something else the next.
Yeah.
I believe God told me to do that. And then, well, no, I'm really not sure. And so they like that wave, or a leaf on the sea, just not really making direct. And God, we're on a plan. God's got a plan for us, a good plan to prosper us. He's got things for us to do. And like you say, in this season, man, time's a wasting, and we want to be about the Father's business, the King's business, if you like. And so that double-minded, there's a lot of things can hinder a person, obviously, but we've seen this where, double-mindedness, that's really what we're calling the spirit of double-mindedness, can really hold a person back. So let's, talk a moment about what we have seen, typically the major open doors. We teach, of course, that spirits just can't jump on a person. You just don't have walking by somewhere and a double-mindedness kind of jumps on you. There's an open door, an entry point for that spirit. So what are some of the major entry points or open doors that we've seen for a spirit of double-mindedness?
Well, certainly generational, generational anything. Like if you've seen it in your background, if you've had like mental illness or in your family members, that can translate many different ways, but as it comes down through the bloodline, it could absolutely manifest as confusion and double-mindedness and mind-binding, but double-mindedness being a leading spirit in a lot of that with the generational mental illness. You can also see it in things like abuse, children that are abused or adults that are abused, that causes them to second guess again with a lot of fear. The fear would bring in that.
So the trauma is traumatic events, abuse, victims of abuse,
right? That
can open a door for a spirit of double-mindedness. But going back to just because before we left, I want to go back to the generational things again. We see, I know, like Freemasonry or Masonic.
Oh, that's true.
They make a big thing there about some of the vows and covenants. And if we've got resources on our site or articles, and certainly lots of things out there about some of the things that happen in the Freemasonic realm and the rituals and the vows that they have to make. And so, there's a lot of mental torment that comes there, but we've seen that and sort of that hoods and basically spiritual, like it's almost like, because it's in deaf and dumb, it's a mental stronghold. We've got mental illness under that same stronghold of deaf and dumb, but it's something that torments the mind. And kind of darkens the person's thinking.
That's
abilities.
Perfect.
So
that's perfect. Yeah.
So abuse happened. So that's one. We've got generational curses and then abuse, right? You said, right? Things that have happened to a person. How does that open the door for, if somebody's been abused verbally, mentally, emotionally, physically, sexually, whatever, how does that open the door, do we feel like, for double-mindedness?
I think with the trauma, it causes them to constantly question themselves. They're never really sure. They're, is this my fault? Did I do something wrong? Or should I do this? Or, they're very tentative about certain things. And I do like the fact that, it does have a tendency, abuse can cause mental illness. It really, you see that. And I think that when you're describing that hooding, when I pray for deaf and dumb spirits, that's what I see. I see almost as if a hood comes over a person where their eyes are blackened. They, where they see darkness, I guess is a better way to say it. Their ears, they can't hear. because they're, they're deaf, spiritually deaf, and they're silenced. Their mouth is shut. So they're underneath that hood. And I think with abuse, that's kind of a good description of it. I mean, you're silenced, you're not heard, you're discounted, you're tossed away, and it's strong. It plays strong mind games on children. I mean, a lot of times, they escape. I think that would probably be, they start to hide because of the abuse. And in that hiding, they become very unsure of their, taking a stand for anything. They're too busy hiding and avoiding. Right? Right.
Absolutely. Yep. And start questioning everything, right? It's just who they are and why did this happen? And so, yeah, double-mindedness is just, it's just a terrible, terrible spirit. I mean, some spirits are more wicked than others, the Bible says, but that's a bad one because it freezes people. It paralyzes them. And as I say, opens a door and tied in with fear many times. And, we're not to live in fear. So if you're double-minded and you open the door for fear, then yeah, you can see why you're going to be stuck. Right. So we've had some folks come through. Right,
yeah, we got another open door too, though. I think broken commitments is a huge open door for double-mindedness. I think when you break a commitment and you don't finish what you start,
like a broken vow or
a broken vow
or a covenant you break or something.
Yeah, like a divorce, or you've made a promise and you don't fulfill it, or you start a project and you don't complete it. You start out strong and then it just you don't finish it. So those are.
Is that God? Was I supposed to be doing that? That sort of thing. And is that what you mean?
Yeah. And so then that double-minded spirit comes in there and makes them indecisive. I think when you start to break commitments,
maybe I didn't hear God. Maybe that wasn't God.
Yeah. Or I should never have married this person, and then then you see a repeating pattern.
Don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but then it still keeps on going with that. So I think broken commitments is a big one. I also think that perfection brings in a lot of double-minded spirits too, because they're constantly people that are walking constantly questioning themselves. Is this good enough? Is this perfect enough? And it never seems to be. So there's a lot of that double-minded stuff that goes on with that because they're constantly questioning themselves.
Okay, so those some of the typical open doors, but I think generational. Yeah, well, any of them, they're all linked. They can any of them can be open doors. We can see that.
Yeah, and there's probably a lot more we're not touching on too.
Absolutely, but we've had some people come through the door. We kind of discern that, and
and certain temperaments, certain temperaments are more prone to it.
Yeah, I think we've touched. We've talked a lot about temperaments in other podcasts and certainly a lot of articles, but I think the melancholy temperament, and I think even the supine temperament.
Yes,
they have active minds. We think think a lot. Think a lot the past, overanalyze, want to understand. There can be that tendency for perfectionism there as well. So you start tying your mind up into knots, and it can go round and round in the proverbial circles, right?
Right.
So there can be that tendency to really doubting and overanalyzing too much. A lot of times we talk about too much information, not enough revelation, or analysis paralysis. Another way of talk about it, where you can muddy the water. And so yes, I do believe that. So some temperaments can be more prone to that and afraid to, pull the trigger on stuff.
Oh, yes. Very tend don't want to make a decision on their own. They tend to be a little bit more of a follower, not a leader. They want to be included in decisions, but not make the decision. The supines, yeah. Yes. So the supines are going to always well, not always, but they'll have a tendency to not want to be the one making the decision. So they do get stuck in that place of non-movement, based in fear.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I do have a couple of stories. I think probably one of the ones that most stands out to me is probably someone that was born into a family that had several generations of divorces. And then even on the heels of a long line of generational divorces, her parents divorced and married, divorced and married each other 3 separate times. So you want to talk about a spirit of double-mindedness.
3 people got the same, because I just want to make sure I understand, because you're saying their parents.
The 2 parents divorced each other and remarried each other 3 separate times. So I think when you want to talk about a spirit of double-mindedness, oh no, we can work it out now, and they go back, they divorce, they go back. Well, her thoughts were, I never want to be in a marriage like that. So consequently, you know, she never got married, but her relationships were all pretty much the same. They were, you know, 10 years of being in and out of the relationship with the same person, breaking up, getting back together, breaking up and getting back together. And so you can see that spirit of double-mindedness has come down through the family bloodline. Now, there's also, when we prayed for her, it was interesting because, you know, when I pray for deaf and dumb spirits, I usually ask the intercessor to put their hands close to their head or lay their hands on their head, you know, as we're calling these spirits out. And the client said she could feel like a tingling and a numbness going on all over her head. A lot of times when we do pray for the deaf and dumb spirits, they'll actually cause a person to be dizzy. And two, here's a door that we forgot when we were talking about open doors. Divination in the family bloodline, like Santeria or any form of witchcraft or any form of the occult will cause a lot of double-mindedness, because then that keeps the person confused. That way they can't prosper. And that's the purpose of a lot of those witchcraft prayers. So when we did pray for her, it was wild. I saw, a lot of times I'll see things in the spirit realm, but I saw a large flash of blue go off over her head right at the same time that this tingling was going on in her head with the intercessor laying the hands on it. And I was calling out a spirit of double-mindedness at the time. And then the power in the office went out. So we kind of felt like, woo, must have hit on something pretty big there. But a lot of times that's what we'll see. I'll see people get real dizzy. Now with double-mindedness, here's another fun fact. There's an overwhelming majority of times where they'll actually sit on the right shoulder of a person. Now, you know, I don't really know what that's about, but when I pray when I pray for a double-minded spirit to loose a person, they'll complain to me about they have pain on their right shoulder. Well, when we're talking about purpose, the keys of David, which were the mantle of his purpose, were on his right shoulder. So if you have a spirit of double-mindedness that's sitting on a place of your mantle that God has given you for your purpose, it's going to confuse your purpose,
Do you
isn't
remember
it?
the scripture for that? We'll try to add that in.
I think it's in Isaiah 22:22, something about the keys. You're given the keys to unlock things that no man can unlock. But I do believe those keys for that sit on the right shoulder. I think that's what it is.
Because that's the arm.
Part of the armor.
The arm that was used for. Okay.
At the right hand of God. Yeah. I'm not sure, but it's almost as if you can't keep your purpose on, you know, like you can walk in authority some places, and then when you get home, you shrink back in double-mindedness and you take it off, and you can walk back, you put your mantle back on and you're strong in one place, and then you take it off. You're constantly taking it on and putting it off, taking it on and putting it off. And that's what that double-minded spirit will do for you. And so we prayed that thing off of her, and, you know, we canceled its assignment, and, you know, watching for the fruitfulness of that deliverance to really take manifest and get her on that right track. But that came in because, you know, and also too, you know, she had a lot of brain injuries. Lots of strokes and different things that had been caused as well. So, you know, whatever it's going to affect your thinking, however the enemy is going to try to exact that against a person. And it's interesting to see how he'll try to bring that double-mindedness in. But I believe in that particular case, it was through broken commitments and things like that down the family bloodline. Now, the other one that I found was interesting when we talked about abuse, and I've talked about this person before, but, you know, her family was very dysfunctional. Her mother always blamed her, said she never wanted her, that she was the reason why her mother's life never turned out the way it should have been. And even though her mother had several children after her, she treated the firstborn like she was the black sheep of the family and would throw her in the closet, literally not feed her for days, and lock her in there in the dark. When she would let her out, it didn't take DCF long to pick up on it when she was in school, because she was sleeping at her desk. She had the black and blue marks all over her arms, and she hadn't eaten. So they took her out of the family, but then the rest of the family blamed her.
Wow.
Because the rest of the family was treated with favor. And so when DCF took one out, you know, all the others were taken out too, right? So there was a lot of guilt and condemnation that was always thrown at this woman. She was completely brutalized by her family, and they still wanted to blame her. That, they're still in that place, even though she's free but double-mindedness was a big spirit that we had to pray off of her because, she had been basically brainwashed all those years into thinking it was all her fault. And it took some work to try to get her out of that place of agreeing with the abuse and still being condemned on a daily basis. So free now.
Praise the Lord.
She's the one that said it was as if deliverance took all of her emotions and put them in a box outside of herself so that when the spirits came back, she didn't have to rely on her emotions anymore. She could just rely on the truth of what God had said, and she operated on renewing her mind from that perspective. So that was powerful.
When sort of before, when she was faced with the decisions or these doubts, what was the primary emotions she was dealing with?
Guilt.
Because of the spirit? So feeling guilty.
Guilt and shame.
Guilt and shame, okay. Because she was perceived it as the source of the problem for her family. Okay, interesting.
And it's obvious as it is to everybody else. It wasn't obvious to her because she'd been under it for so long. And the other one, too, I think is religious perfection or perfection. People that, have this high standard over themselves where they have to get everything done and be, they're driven. They're definitely driven with perfection. And that perfection causes them to doubt and to question themselves. And to bring them into that double-minded state of did I blow it? What did I do? What did I do wrong? And then the next day it's like no, I'm moving forward, and then no, I did something wrong. God's not going to give me favor. So you see them caught in that conundrum because of that spirit of perfection. It does bring a whole veil over their head of nothing's ever going to be good enough. So it keeps them in that stagnant place.
So we have perfection under the strong man of haughtiness and pride. So if that perfection, the devils can get a person caught up in perfection, then nothing's ever good enough. So they start, is this the right thing? Is this perfect? Is this good enough? And so it can open the door apart from anything else that's going on. To have that double-mindedness, because when is it good enough? When is anything good enough? When have they got it right enough to move ahead? Right?
Yeah, it's like with artists. Again, you talk about the melancholy temperament. A lot of them are artists and actors, and so you say they're not going to release any of their work because it's never good enough. So that, and I think though then the last one and one of the biggest ones is the divination. So anything that has been prayed to control a mind or to release witchcraft spirits over a mind, or even when
people get involved in some of these things too. They get on their own. These mental things and the power, just mind control and minding, getting your mind.
All the new age stuff,
a lot of the new age stuff, and I can see that, because then when you get out of that, and then you got to almost like deprogrammed. After apart from deliverance, getting free from any spirits associated with being involved in that activity, your mind almost needs to get rewired.
Right. But they do cause a lot of double-mindedness and mind binding. And, too, also, when you think about witchcraft prayers, you might want to think about it a little bit out of the box, too, because I've had some people argue with me. No, my family was not involved with any kind of witchcraft. But, outside sources could pray witchcraft over a particular family if they didn't like them out of jealousy, or they could be witchcraft prayers to cause you to submit. I've seen that, where people pray private, personal agenda prayers to get the other person to submit to their will. So they pray their will over them, not God's will. And that will actually cause a person to be double-mindedness, because they're caught in this trap of somebody else's will too. It's a little weird, but divination is a big open door. It really is.
Yeah, it's related where people can have curses over themselves.
Yes.
Witchcraft curses, and from, you talk different ethnic backgrounds, Santeria, roots, Obia, any kind of curses, and it affects their mind.
It does.
And so it can cause these things, but the root source will be that curse. Maybe could be a
curse.
Could be
a different curse.
Or a curse as well. Yeah, it could be things they were involved in also. We've had these, seen people under these spells and different things where their mind is messed up. They can't think properly because they've been cursed by somebody else. So that's another open door as well.
Right. So those are the stories that I have. So I think the key with this is, we're going to have to seek out deliverance if you've got some of this double-mindedness that's going on in a person's life. You've got to get the help, and then also once they're cast out, again, we keep talking about this, but you can't focus on your past. I mean, your history is your history. It's just like in your cells. It's written. It's there. It's never going to go away. Your history is always going to be there. It's part of what is going to be used to make you great, because God will take what's meant for evil and use it for good. So you've got to keep your eyes fixed forward. I go back to always in Exodus 14, where the Israelites were trapped by the ensuing army and the water. They were trapped. There was no place for them to go. And they looked over their shoulder, and behind them were 600 chariots, each with a commander. To me, that's a picture of the demonic kingdom, with the ruling spirits and the smaller spirits that are coming after you. That's your past. They're going to be back there. We're going to cast them out. We can put them underneath the blood of Jesus Christ. And then your point is, don't meditate on the past. You start meditating and thinking about them, like when the Israelites looked over over their shoulder, they shrunk in fear. But God said to him, why are you still, said to Moses, why are you still crying out to me? Tell the people to get moving, right? Go forward. With every woe, God has a deliverer. That's the key with all of that. So I think you're going to have to learn how to take those thoughts captive, cover your mind with the blood of Jesus Christ, and walk into the fullness of your destiny. Because you know what? 2018 is a big year. And I think, this is a year for us to really get our ducks in a row, so to speak, so we can get out there and do what God's created us to do.
Do the stuff. Do
the stuff.
Do what we're created to do. Exactly. Yeah. That was John Wimber's catchphrase, doing the stuff. And, and being bound up with double-mindedness can keep a person from doing the stuff and afraid to move. And so, the season is now. Get free from those devils. And then, as you say, going forward, we're the first to say there's not demons behind every problem in a person's life.
But there's a lot of demons.
There's a lot of demons. They need to go. But after that, like the battlefields of the mind, so take these thoughts captive. And that's one of the tools of the enemy. They will remind you of the past. And they'll try to put fear of the future. Remind you of your past and fear for the future. And it's like, no, I got to take those thoughts captive. What do I believe? No, I believe what God says I am. I believe, these things, and forgetting what is behind, pressing on toward the goal, learning how to live in faith and not in fear. And hey, look, we're all on that journey, and it is a journey, and it is a process. But, the mind battles, especially after deliverance, it's like, okay, I got to take these thoughts captive. And yes, there's some other things we need to do in the natural, barriers and being in the right place and the social situation, good boundaries, and all these things. Yeah, this isn't a, deliverance, not a quick fix, magic bullet, but get free from the spirits and then move forward.
Right.
Move forward. Okay. I think that's good. Good. Well, I hope that's been helpful for you. If it's tweaked some things or piqued your interest, connect with us on the website. We're at Above and Beyond Christian Counseling, of course, is the name, and andbcounseling.com is our website. Get on with us there. We do help people worldwide. We've got counselors. We're adding more counselors. We do things here in Florida where we're headquartered, but we help people all over the world. We need to get a map and keep track of the countries, literally where we're up to. But it's growing pretty much weekly of different countries, and so we can help you over the internet. Check out our Academy website as well. We got training materials on there for deliverance ministry, for children's deliverance, Christian counseling degree programs. Some people are called to be a counselor. Hey, we can help you with that. We've got programs for that. And so take a look at that as well. We're on iTunes. These podcasts are on our website, andbcounseling.com, but we're also on iTunes. The station name is deliveranceministry.fm. Look for us there. Subscribe. Please leave a review for us. That would be helpful. Leave a nice review. We would like that. It helps us to build our visibility there and help us to get found. And we would appreciate that very much. We've also had people who we've helped and worked with say, how can we help you? How can we bless you? And they want to become warrior partners. We have a warrior partners program. It's really laid out on the counseling website, andbcounseling.com, where you can join with us and give one-time gifts or ongoing monthly partner with us to help get the resources, get the materials out there for deliverance ministry, help and make this available also to folks who need deliverance maybe. And so these things take funds, they take energy, they take time and funds. So if you want to feel led by the Lord as you're blessed by these podcasts or our YouTube videos or the articles that we write, do that. But we'd certainly appreciate that. And then we should finally mention again the resource library that you can sign up for. You can get at it from any of our websites. It's totally free. A lot of our podcasts, YouTube videos, slide shares are there, and trying to make it easily accessible. And if you sign up for that, then you'll get an email when we send out new podcasts and new articles. And so we lots there. So with that, I want to say thank you for listening. As I mentioned at the outset, please get with us if you want to feel like a topic you feel like would be beneficial to be addressed. Email it to us, send it to us. We'll look over that, because we certainly want to come out with things that you, the audience, are most interested in. So with that, we'll sign off. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned. We'll be back again real soon. God bless you.